Your support helps us bring you programs you love. Go to wyomingpbs.org, click on Support, and become a sustaining member or an annual member. It's easy and secure. Thank you.
On the next Wyoming Chronicle, we examine the impact of Matthew Shepard's death in Wyoming today. We open the episode with thoughts from Cathy Connolly, the only openly gay member of the Wyoming legislature. We'll also hear from Albany County Sheriff David O'Malley, who was an investigator in the case 20 years ago. And finally, we'll hear from a committee charged with organizing events that remember the brutal death of a gay university student. Matthew Shepard, why it matters today.
Funding for this program was provided in part by the Wyoming Public Television Endowment and viewers like you.
Hi, I'm Cathy Connolly. I am a member of the Wyoming legislature where I've served for the past 10 years. I think it's incredibly important for us to remember the brutal murder of Matthew Shepard 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I had the same job that I do today. I was a UW professor where Matthew Shepard was a student. His brutal murder impacted me and members of this community, not only Laramie, but the state, in ways that changed all of us, and not simply because I'm gay, but because that murder became a symbol of hate and homophobia in this community as well as elsewhere. Murders like this happened all around the globe, but it happened in our backyard. It shook me and it shook others, and it propelled us to act. And in all honesty, to act in ways that we continue to need to do. I can give you lots of examples, but a legislative colleague, called me last week, and he wanted resources immediately. Someone had just called him because a kid in his community, one of our small towns, had just come out as gay to one of his best friends. And his best friend's response was, "You should go kill yourself." It brought tears to my eyes, a pit in my stomach, and here's what I know that you can do to help right now. We need to act. We need to continue to act. We've worked on issues of marriage equality, right? Gay and lesbian folks in Wyoming and elsewhere can get married, but we don't have a non-discrimination ordinance. Someone can get married today and get fired tomorrow simply because they're gay in the state of Wyoming. For some reason, our kids are not safe. And when I think about that, it literally brings tears to my eyes. And as you know, and so many of your listeners know, last year when I brought a bill forward that would simply clean up our statutes to recognize marriage equality, the community commentary that was awful towards our gay and lesbian citizens, again, shook all of us. We have more work to do. We know we have people like me who are gays and lesbians. We know that we have kids who are coming out. We need to have statutes. We need to have understanding. Let's start with just understanding. We need to have understanding of that reality. And in all honesty, we need to celebrate our diversity, right? I know our gay kids, our gay community members are absolutely kind of important components of our state. Always have been, always will be. We talk about wanting a progressive vision for the state. We talk about, wanting to bring in kind of new businesses. We need to be welcoming to everyone, absolutely everyone. And in order to do that, we need the understanding, we need the infrastructure, and we need the statutes to reflect our reality. So remembering the murder of Matthew Shepard and remembering what we need to do is really important. 20 years ago, 20 years before that, and hopefully not 20 years from now, but we still have work to do.
It's been now 20 years since the murder of Matthew Shepard here in Laramie. And as we recall the events around that horrendous murder, we're going to visit with Laramie Albany County Sheriff Dave O'Malley, who was a commander with Laramie Police Force on that day. Sheriff, welcome, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
On Wyoming Chronicle. Dave, I should tell our viewers that the reason you and I are visiting today is because a committee has been organized here in Laramie, the 20th Year Memorial Committee, that has events that are commemorating this tragedy. But it certainly meant a lot of things to Laramie, meant a lot of things to Wyoming, and a lot of things to our country. How has your perspective changed?
It's difficult for me to try to convey this to people, but prior to this investigation, I was a fully homophobic individual. I bought into all of the myths and the stereotypes surrounding the gay community. Literally, the word faggot rolled off my tongue as easily as I love you did to my children. I'd be the first guy in a locker room to say, hey, did you hear the one about the 3 queers that went in a bar? Never thinking about or even considering that maybe somebody standing next to me was struggling with issues involving sexual identity or gender identity or any number of different things. So this investigation forced me to interact with the gay community. And it's hard for me to explain to people the internal or the personal flip that I did after getting there. For one thing, I never understood hate crimes. I figured, what the heck, everything's a hate crime. But I was able to see a full group of people in terror. I saw students dropping out of the University of Wyoming. I saw professors leaving to other areas because of the fear of what happened here. And so that ingrained on me that there is a difference between a hate crime and other crimes. I mean, you have robberies gone wrong in liquor stores every day, but I never think about going in and buying a 6-pack of beer on my way home when we had people literally dropping out of school here because of the things that happened. And it hit me hard. It also hit me that what I had done for the past 45 or 46 years was preclude a good group of people from being friends. And I found out very quickly the only difference between me and the people that I was dealing with in this case was sexual orientation. We had all the same kinds of things that we did extracurricularly, hunting, fishing. You know, I used to kid with Jim Osborne, a good friend of mine that happened to be the lead of the LGBTA association back when Matthew was killed. He hunts ducks, you know. I said, gay guys don't hunt ducks, you know, and it was just one of those things that I realized, and I spent the last 20 years trying to make up for that in the friendships that my wife and I have with some really quality people.
We're now pleased to be joined by members of the Matthew Shepard Memorial Committee here on the campus of the University of Wyoming. In fact, we're at the Matthew Shepard Memorial bench just in front of the Arts and Sciences auditorium here at the University of Wyoming. Members of the committee that are with us today, thank you all for joining us. Nicole Lamartine, Jess Fahlsing, Christi Boggs, Rachel Watson, and Emily Monago. Thank you so much for being with us today. Jess, you're a student here at the University of Wyoming. Yep. Let me start with you. Matthew Shepard has a legacy, and you were very, very young, just born.
Yep, I was about 2 when Matthew was murdered.
When he was murdered.
Right.
What does that mean today here at the University of Wyoming, and why is it important for your group to have memorial events?
I think it's important so we can learn about his case and remember. My perspective is different from most of the committee here because I wasn't here at the time when he was murdered. And I think it's important to remember Matthew because his legacy has grown to include other aspects of social justice. The Shepard Symposium on campus every year that we have in the spring really highlights social justice and other issues than just queer issues. We often say that Matthew was for human rights when he was on this campus and at the university. And so remembering a queer student who was murdered 20 years later, it's important because we can use it to learn what we as students here can do to make an impact in our community and on campus and as students.
Rachel and Christi, you were brand new to the university, having been here just a month or so prior to Matthew Shepard's murder, and has been here ever since. What's happened to the institution because of Matthew Shepard's murder?
That's a great question, and I think that the answer to that starts internally, because I know that for each and every person who was here, and especially for those who were queer, it was a moment of asking a really important question as to whether this was a community where we could be safe. And we experienced the community's response to the event, and because of that response, we stayed. And it was because the community here made us feel like this was a place that we could be at home. And with that internal landscape change for me, and I think for many of us who were here, came the external landscape change that Jess is talking about. Because when we were able to internalize that struggle and to say that this is a community we want to be a part of building, we decided that maintaining that legacy and maintaining that memory, both internally and externally, was extremely important. I don't think at that time when he was murdered, I ever thought I would become an activist. In fact, I remember talking with Christi and saying, I don't think of myself as an activist. And she said, I don't know what I could ever do for our people. And, you know, it's so crazy to think about that now, because she co-chairs the Shepard Symposium. She's the head of the Committee on Women and People of Color. I am the director of the Queer Studies minor. Jess is a Queer Studies minor. And what we've built, not just us, but all of the people who likewise internalized that event and built from it externally, have built something that I think is now ready to be even international. And we're working now on allowing this conference to be something that draws people from all over the world.
Christi, do you have a sense that Matthew Shepard is very important to this campus, but there may be people watching us today in Wyoming that really haven't thought much about what his legacy means, not just here in this space, but maybe anywhere in Wyoming?
Yeah, I think that one of the things as you travel around the world, and we travel a lot, is as you introduce yourselves from Wyoming even, but certainly from Laramie, and one of the first things that people think of outside is Matthew Shepard's murder, which is not a great way to go around the world, I don't feel like.
It's happened to me.
Yeah.
It certainly has.
Yeah. It's a little rough because you are proud of so many things that happen here, and you're proud of so many things in the state, and so many amazing people, and what we kind of get seen as is that. And I think that one thing that's super important about this event, and I know there's a lot of people who kind of are like, why are we doing this? Why are we trying to bring this back up and talk about this again?
And I think many people might say, that's old news. Come on, we've got to move on.
Right. And I think that one of the important pieces of that is that if we can make noise with this event, then maybe the next thing that somebody says is like, oh yeah, that was Matthew Shepard, and you guys did this really cool thing for his 20th memorial. Right. Maybe it will change the narrative of the outside world a little bit, and maybe even within. I think it's important to realize that it's not that event is 20 years old, but hate and violence against all kinds of groups is not 20 years old. It's 20 seconds old. It's happening every minute. And so I think that's important to remember. And by keeping these kind of things in the forefront of your mind, you can help people think about what it means when you call a young, when you say that's so gay in high school. Like, what does that actually mean to somebody who is gay? or is a different kind of group. I mean, that kind of thing it's meaningful and it has real implications.
Emily, you work in the diversity office here at the University of Wyoming.
Yes, I do.
Is your work getting easier or tougher as time goes on relative to issues that we think about when we think about Matthew Shepard's murder?
Well, I think in some aspects it is getting a little tougher, just due to the climate in general nationally. But students do want to come in and learn. Our office did hold a number of workshops that students participated in, not just students, but faculty and staff. And we've held some workshops for the community as well. So we're trying to welcome everyone into the conversation. And I think the Matthew Shepard Memorial events is another way that we're doing that. My participation on the committee has been fantastic. We're trying to bring in a wide net of people representing students, faculty, staff, and the community members. So it's tougher in some ways, but it's richer. We're bringing in more diverse people from the campus community.
Nicole, you're on faculty here at the University of Wyoming. How has the last several years impacted you in how you go about teaching in the music department here at the University of Wyoming?
That's a good question. So I've been here for 10 years now. I came in 2008, which was the 10th year of the murder. And I think the campus community itself has grown in tremendous ways. I think the students are more open, the faculty are more open, we're more tolerant, we are educating ourselves as to all of the social justice issues. And in 2008, I commissioned a choral piece to be performed at the Shepard Symposium, and I had some resistance from my students saying that they couldn't participate. And now, in 2018, I'm excited to say that my students are excited about all of the events that we have planned. They are opening their minds, and as an educator, I feel like it's my duty to provide opportunity to open minds. That's what an education is. And so I also believe that tolerance and compassion need to be taught. And so if I can provide events that open the minds of the students where we can learn compassion and tolerance, that's a huge goal of mine, and I think that we are doing that through our events that we've planned.
Generally speaking, is this university a tolerant place? Is there still a lot of work to do, or what is your perspective? And anyone can chime in. It's a hard question.
Okay, I was going to say that generally I think it's a very welcoming and tolerant place. We have some work to do, and we've started that as a new office. We've had over about 400 faculty and staff and students participate in some of the diversity education workshops that we have, and I think that's very telling. We've had just some workshops from our office. More than 200 people participate in those. So we have a lot of great things happening, and I would agree with Nicole. People do come on this campus, and we've had some people come from the community. So it's a time where the national climate may be a little difficult, but on this campus, it feels like a safe place to many of our students, faculty, and staff.
Christi, would you agree?
I actually would. I mean, I think I agree with a lot of that. I do a lot of faculty development work, and yesterday I had an inclusive pedagogy workshop, which is not just about LGBTQ issues. It's inclusive pedagogy is helpful to everybody. It helps all students learn. This was a 3-hour workshop the week before classes start, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of faculty are very stressed, and I had a huge turnout, and they were very thoughtful and very engaged and brought so many good discussions. And so I think that faculty, especially some of the younger faculty, but actually at this point all the faculty are really seeing this as seeing the idea of inclusion as a very important piece, and I think that's super important. And I think as a faculty, that's helpful to all students. I mean, all students, and so that's the whole point of inclusion.
Yes, Rachel.
I also agree, but I think that as a whole, folks in Wyoming are so kind. They are so kind, and sometimes that can be both good and bad. So the good part of that is obviously that it is tolerant, right? We do have a campus that is tolerant, but then I sometimes think there's a misunderstanding of what it means to be kind to those that have suffered hate. And a lot of times people want to forget, like they want to erase those experiences. And I think it's so important that we remember that the opposite of liberation is not hate. The opposite of liberation is erasure. It's the lack of voice. So for queer folks, for queer families, for queer couples, we often just are missing from the narrative. There isn't a narrative. We were really fortunate to get invited to come to a class that actually Jess attended, where they asked about, they invited couples, and they invited Christi and I, and they asked a question. They asked about, tell us the story of your courtship and how your relationship began. And I've never been asked that question before. And so where most couples have a narrative, and that narrative has been reinforced through time, right? You know, oh yeah, tell the story that way, right? That sounds really good when you say it that way. That those stories, they're lost. And so we just have to remember that when we try to erase or forget, we're erasing people's stories. And I think that's important. And that'd be the next step in my mind for this campus.
Yeah, Jess, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think what this university can do as well is provide safe spaces for these difficult conversations to happen. I know it's really tough to still have counter narratives about Matthew's case out there, but you can use it to really question why there are some of these narratives about drug use and what that means to his case, and really broaden the discussion of why Matthew's legacy had such an impact. And I know for me, a lot of the times, fear keeps me silent, and it's something that I have carried from being openly queer in Wyoming, which Wyoming is getting better, I think, and Laramie is a safe place to be. But what I really appreciate about this committee is it's given me a chance to experience diversity and experience such tremendous support from the community, from faculty, from staff, and other campus groups and other community groups. And April Heaney and I are on a curriculum subcommittee through this memorial group. And we're trying to hit first-year programs, the honors program, many incoming students, and reach across campus with texts about Matthew, whether it be books, films, websites to go to. So we're really working against erasure, and we're trying to provide safe spaces to have these difficult conversations.
You all are wearing badges, stickers, with 3 circles. What do they represent? Nicole?
Sure. So I wasn't here 20 years ago, but Christi and Rachel can tell you more about the armbands. There was a student group on campus who created armbands, and it's a show of solidarity, of unity. And the 3 green circles are the international representation sign for peace. And so it is finding peace, compassion, and love in everything that we do so that we're better humans to each other.
I think it's important to look at what we see nationally as well. If it can happen, a crime like the murder of a UW student, Matthew Shepard, in a place like Laramie, Wyoming, as a nation, we have to kind of look at ourselves. I think what we've talked about is stories being very powerful. They have an ability to change someone's heart, someone's mind. We need to keep doing that, telling the story. We need to look at the national landscape that since Matthew's murder, we have not seen crimes and violence against the LGBTQ community go down. So we still need to keep those conversations going. And I think that's one of the reasons why, as a committee, we've been motivated to do so many things during this memorial, just to honor him and to tell the story of so many people, so many different marginalized populations. Their stories will be out there just through the programming that we do. So it's an honor. It's something that we put our hearts and souls into because we're compassionate about it and we want to tell the stories.
I was just going to say that, and it's talking about how the campus changed, but I was also going to I wanted to say something a little bit about the community, how that changed too, and as well as the state. And in that, 20 years ago when this happened, even 10 years ago when Nicole came, I can't imagine going downtown, having a pride parade in downtown Laramie, and going downtown Laramie and seeing rainbow flags in every business downtown. And that's happened the last couple of years, and that is something that's really different and really substantially important, because whereas we might have felt fairly comfortable for a long time on the campus because of the way the campus and the community responded, it's been only recently that we felt really, really comfortable in the town. And then I also would just want to say, when the whole Wyoming-wide tutu thing, where everybody wore a tutu, and that was a whole amazing thing. It wasn't just a Laramie thing. It was like people were wearing tutus in these small towns all over the state, and it was an amazingly awesome show of what I think of as truly Wyoming kindness and Wyoming, taking care of their own to a certain extent. So.
And I think one of the hopes with this committee is that what we're putting together will last beyond just the 20th. This curriculum will last. We'll have that accessible. And this committee coming together too has formed some really amazing partnerships. And I've learned a lot as a student. It's been such an incredible opportunity to be able to be on this committee and to learn from folks who've been here and to see the support that has come in too.
Well, there is really a month's worth of remembrance that will be occurring here at the University of Wyoming, and your committee has done a lot of work, and I wish you the best of luck as school opens here at the University of Wyoming, turns the chapter on another school year, and also another chapter in the memory, I guess, of Matthew and what happened so horrifically 20 years ago. So thank you, all of you, for joining us today on Wyoming Chronicle.